What's up everybody, Brian Tong here, and this is my review of the new M5 Apple Vision Pro, and what you see in hand looks a whole lot like the previous M2 Vision Pro, and really across the board a lot of the M5 products are incremental, but we're going to talk about what is different here, specifically obviously the M5 chip, some design elements, and then we're going to talk about what the future for the Apple Vision Pro looks like. But let's start here with the design here, okay? First of all, everything looks the same, right? Is all in arrangement except for two big things. First of all, the weight. The weight of the new Apple Vision Pro, previously the M2 was 600 to 650 grams. And now this new Vision Pro weighs in between 750 and 800 grams. So that is a 150 gram difference. And where is that all from? Well, it's really from this new dual knit band that it comes with, right? Before you've seen the solo knit band, and that was a single piece in the back. This is now two loops, knitted loops. But what's really unique about this, where the weight is that, remember, with other headsets, you typically need some sort of a counterweight to help lift all this, the front-loaded weight of the devices. So what they've done is there are actual flexible tungsten inserts in the back here. So every time you see this little ribbed part, if you feel in it, there's actually a little piece of tungsten that makes this a solid piece that is flexible. Up top here, I can push right through them, right? Up top here, but on this back part, it's a solid piece of tungsten. So that's where the counterweight happens, and that's where really you're getting that 150 grams of weight. It also could depend on the weight of your light seal. There's different sizes for this as well. So that's where the difference in weight is coming from. But the biggest thing is that it's the way the weight is distributed. And this is what's interesting. In this specific dual knit band design, you have a dial here, and what this does is it tightens, just like you expected before, and loosens. But what you can do is I can actually pull this up and pop it up, and you'll see it's a little elevated. Here's the in position, here's the out position, and when it's pulled out, when I tighten it, this actually tightens the top band. When I push it in, it tightens or loosens the lower band. So you have dual control for adjustability, but where that makes a difference is when I'm wearing this on my face, as I tighten the upper band, it essentially kind of lifts this off of this area where a lot of the weight has been, a lot of the stress of the way this headset has been on your face. So overall, yes, the M5 Apple Vision Pro does weigh approximately 150 grams more. What is that equivalent to? I heard something like 4 slices of bread, but the way that the weight is distributed actually makes this more comfortable. Is it significantly lighter? No, but it is more comfortable, and I can tell you that I can wear this for longer durations of time, whereas before, maybe 15, 20 minutes, I'd start feeling the weight here. I could probably wear this a little more comfortably around 30 to 45 before I feel like, oh, I need to take a break. Here's another thing that makes this fun. This top strap here, I'm gonna put it on right now. The way that it rests is, okay, I'm gonna tighten this up for you, right? I'm gonna tighten here on the lower, I'm gonna pop this up and tighten this on the upper. But what happens is, let's say you wanna take a break. Because you have that upper head strip here, before this wasn't able to support everything. Now I kind of have this upper band and lower band. So I was actually walking around the house like this pretty comfortably, and it feels snug and secure. So that's an unintentional advantage of this new dual knit band design. So this new dual knit band comes with the new M5 Apple Vision Pro. It's in the box. You will not receive, in the previous generation, there were 2 different types of headbands. There was the solo knit band and the dual loop band. They've essentially combined these two, but this is a significant difference in the overall comfort. You can purchase it separately for $99 if you want to adapt this and put it on your previous M2 Apple Vision Pro. All right, now let's talk about the guts. The other big difference in this display, again, all the cameras, sensors, the actual OLED displays in here, these are all the same. The battery is the same. So the biggest internal hardware difference is gonna be the M5. So I've talked about it in some of my other videos, but let's just kind of hit the big points. This is based off the 3rd generation 3nm process. So what that means is it's more power efficient while bringing more CPU power. Always a good thing when both of those things are going up, right? Also, in addition to that, you have a comparison single core performance. If you compare the M5 to the M4, 10% improvement in single core. If you compare it to multi-core performance, about 15 to 20%. And then you have an all-new next generation graphics engine that supports better visuals. This is gonna be a big improvement here for gaming, but we're gonna now dive into specifically how the M5 has helped the Apple Vision Pro. So the first thing that it does is that when you look at this inside, right, this is called a foveated rendering, where what you're focusing on is what's sharp and then the edges are more blurry. Apple's saying with the new M5, you get 10% more pixels in that center focused area. Also, this supports 120 hertz refresh rate. So the previous M2 Apple Vision Pro was variable between 90 and 100 hertz refresh rate. So you're getting 20 hertz more, okay? And then the other thing is reduced motion blur. So when you're moving side to side, the visuals stay more intact. So those are improvements from the M5. But you know, you got to put this to the test. And I actually was comparing this versus the M2 Apple Vision Pro. I would switch wearing them off. I would try and see what I could tell. And look, I would say I'm more of a videophile who looks for artifacts, who looks for, you know, the deepest blacks with video, who looks at like the sharpness and clarity. And in all the different tests that I did, it was actually really hard to tell the difference. I was bouncing between both headsets, watching Apple immersive video, seeing the NBA All-Star video where there's a lot of motion. Could I detect any differences there? I couldn't. I was looking at photos specifically for my photo gallery. I could not see the difference. 10% pixels is really not that much. In fact, it's probably hard for anyone to really see the difference. There's claims that you look further down in the background, you should be able to see things sharper. Fine text that's up close is sharper. I would say maybe in an example where I brought up an app really close to me, I mean, sometimes I felt like I was tricking my brain. It might have been a little sharper. Then the base experiment was using a Mac virtual display. All right, so I have the Vision Pro on right now. I have my MacBook Pro here, and what I'm gonna do is look down here and connect to it. It's gonna say connecting, and what you'll see now here is, yes, this is amazing, right? The Mac virtual display right now, if I look up top and I click on there, we can go between standard, wide, and ultra wide. So I'm gonna go to ultra wide here, and you'll actually see in a moment, it expands this now significantly. This is almost like 1, 2, 3 displays, and I can take, right, the apps that I have here. Let's take my Photos app here. Let's bring it over here, right? I can take something like my Premiere Pro and bring it up here. What I also like is that, you know, when you talk about looking at fine text, when I bring this up really close to me, now I would never edit this close, but this looks as sharp as possible. So that 10% pixels might come into play more here, but again, I don't work in that space, but I can control everything here on my laptop just like you'd expect to. Here's my playhead. I'm scrolling through video. But the biggest thing is when I move side to side, and I tested this with both an M2 and an M5 Vision Pro, and it'll look shaky with the video that you see here, but I never was able to see like, oh, it looks sharper with the M5 when I do this. So the motion blur scanning, I don't even sense it here. So again, right, these improvements are here, but I just didn't feel the advantage of the M5 versus the M2 when I'm here in this virtual Mac display. So when I put that all together, I'm not saying that these improvements aren't here. I'm not saying that these improvements do not matter, because they do in the long run. I'm just saying that I couldn't really detect it, and a 20 hertz difference in refresh rate, I think for anyone is actually pretty hard to detect. I'm glad the improvements are there, but I actually thought coming into this review that I might be like, oh my gosh, it's so much better, and really, I feel very happy with the M2 Vision Pro that I still have. And in fact, I think the biggest upgrade that you can make is to purchase the 99 DualNet band to improve the comfortability of that Apple Vision Pro. The other big improvement that really has to do more with optimizations in the software with VisionOS 26 and also the optimizations of the energy usage of the M5 is this right here, the battery. So let's look at the previous Apple Vision Pro was rated for 2 hours of normal use and operation and roughly 2.5 hours of watching a movie. Now, when I did my benchmarks back then, watching a video reached over just like 3 hours in a few minutes. So of course, I was gonna put this to the test. Now this is rated to have 2.5 hours of normal usage and then 3 hours of watching a movie. So guess what? I put this on, I let it play. I had it in an immersive environment and full screen, okay? Well, what I found is watching Avengers Infinity War and some of Avatar Way of Water, I was able to get 3 hours and 40 minutes of video time. I did this so you don't have to. I literally wore this for 3 hours and 40 minutes while I had many other things to do to find out what the juice in this is like. So the battery hasn't changed. It's all really more optimizations from the M5 and software optimization. So I love that. This is going to easily get you through a full movie with that 3 hour and 40 minute video time viewing. Other big changes here really comes down to now VisionOS. Now the first thing, VisionOS 26, the biggest improvement there, the personas, right? This is that generated avatar where it scans your face and it creates a representation of you in the Apple Vision Pro, whether it's for FaceTime calls or for spatial experiences. I'll tell you, the detail of the face, the freckles, the people's facial hair, you now get a lot more detail on the ears and the side of the head. It's a huge leap up. We even had Jenna Izarek join a video call with some of us who had, updated personas, and you could really tell the difference of how they look. So that's been a great improvement just from an immersive ability of looking at someone and feeling like that it's really them. The eyes, the expressions, significantly better. So personas, new personas, thumbs up. Now, then you take those and bring them into spatial FaceTime calls, right? This is to give us a more immersive feeling. Justine, Farouk, and Michael Josh and myself, we all jumped into a call. One of the cool things, interactivity, is they'll lay you out in a row and you'll get positioned differently. But when I turned over to Justine, we were able to do this. I don't know if this existed before, but we were able to do like a high five. And when you did that, you'll see a pulse and there's a tone, and you can do single high five, double high fives, right? What was interesting is your brain almost tricked you that person was there, is that as your hands were just about to get closer, you almost felt this warmth or presence. And I know that sounds really weird, but once you experience it, you'll know what I'm saying. But something about our brain makes us feel like that person is actually there because it looks so good. It doesn't look like, a really crappy avatar or anything like that. Another thing here is shared experiences once you're in this call. So we did things like pass around a 3D model of an Apple Vision Pro. We were handing it off to each other around in the circle. We were spinning around and manipulating it. Another thing that we did is that I did a presentation. I shared my photo gallery and I showed the group pictures from Din Tai Fung. We even turned some of those into spatial photos. I will say one of the things that you can definitely feel the M5 is it's faster from converting standard photos into spatial photos, and they look pretty incredible on this headset. We also played games of hearts. There's a card table in the middle of us. So you sometimes forget how fun this device can actually be. But then when reality hits, the reason why we haven't done this so much is, other than my friends in the tech space that review this, I know one other person who actually has purchased an Apple Vision Pro, and they live in a different country. And so the device and the technology and the immersion is incredible. But again, the barriers to entry are its price, its comfortability, and then content. And so as time goes on, we'll see how things evolve. And this is not in the next 6 months or a year. I'm talking about 2 years, 3 years. We'll see if they can break that, crack that nut and crack that code. But it's still a fun experience when you actually do it. It's just that not everyone has the hardware to do it. So now let's talk a little bit about the future of the Apple Vision Pro and what Apple is doing right now. Probably the biggest announcement that just happened a couple of weeks ago was the fact that Apple announced that NBA games will be able to be viewed in an Apple Vision Pro live in Apple Immersive. They are select LA Lakers games. It's a partnership with Spectrum, the NBA, the Lakers, and Apple. And this is just scratching the surface of what is possible, because in my very original review, I talked about how this is the most immersive device out there. The word I could use to describe this is immersive, and they need more immersive experiences. We've seen movies, we've seen music performances and custom-made content, but we're talking about live sports, and the schedule will be released later in the fall, I believe. But if they can actually do this and do this in the way that I hope and expect to, this opens up a whole new level of content that can really elevate to this next level. We heard some of the reports that Apple was changing their focus to more of AR glasses and less focus on here. But with the announcement of the Laker NBA games in immersive, that tells me that they're planting the seeds from a content side, and then let's extrapolate that into other sports, then into other live events like wrestling, then into live concert performances. That is what they need to get to. And then in that time, 2 or 3 years down the road, have a lighter headset, have a more affordable headset with the same fidelity, and then, right, the same immersive capabilities and detail in these screens so that everything looks and feels the same, that's when you're really getting to a point where, okay, the Apple Vision Pro might be onto something, because I think there's a group of people who want this to succeed. There's a group of people from the outside that are saying, it's dead on arrival. I would tell you if I thought it was dead. I just think we're maybe 2 or 3 years for them to get there with all of this immersive content. That's when we might see something. So I'm invested in this platform for the long run. I know I don't use it all the time, but that's something that is still on the table to make this special, and that is why I'm saying the Apple Vision Pro is definitely not dead. Now, we also have some other VisionOS 26 features that have, added more capabilities here. One of them is full 360 field of view video support, or wide video support. So that's products like GoPro. That's products like the Insta360 that you can now basically transfer video over and then experience that world in 360. So whether you're skiing, whether it's these new 360 drones, whether it's something like a party and you just want to be present, plop that 360 camera in there, pop on this headset later on, and then just look around and experience it. That is one of the things that you can do. Also, gaming, we talked about the next generation GPU here. There's this feature called Game Controller Breakthrough. So now when you're playing a game and holding the controller, you can look down and actually see yourself physically playing while the game is here. I think that's just important from bringing things from the regular world into this. And then thirdly, support for PSVR2 Sense controllers. Now that is going to come up to developers support it. There's a cool game that they previewed called Pickle Pro. It's playing pickleball with these VR controllers, and we're just going to have to see how that plays out. To me, the biggest obstacle is developers and then hardware and software, third parties working together. That can be tough, but there are things that have happened along the way. Every time Apple releases a new version of VisionOS, I think they introduce key features. We had a virtual max display ultra wide last time. So these are all things that I think add up. And again, the platform is not dead. It might be kind of like hanging out in the brush, kind of like a lion just waiting to attack. But yeah, there's a lot of great stuff happening behind the scenes if this is a platform that you're into. So when you look at the Vision Pro as a whole, again, if you've never really seen this and you want to get into the nitty gritty, I reference you back to my first review of this. I've been talking about some of the improvements this has, but again, price point, this still starts at $3,499 here in the US, right? That's for a 256 gig storage model. It goes up to 512 and 1 terabyte. And then if you get accessories and things like that, and then tax and everything, you're basically gonna be spending minimum $4,000 on this. That is still quite a hefty price for a lot of people for a platform that may not be there yet, but is getting there. So we understand why not enough people have purchased this yet, but they're still laying down a lot of the foundation. And so I'm not worried about that, but I do wish I had more friends to play around with it. But $3,499 is the starting price. It is available today, but there you go. The big changes here, really, the dual knit band, which you can buy separately and use with your original Apple Vision Pro, and obviously the M5 and all the extra juice and features inside here. But there you go. That is my review for the Apple Vision Pro. The M5 version is here. The big question is, are you gonna upgrade or are you gonna get one for the first time? That's up to you. I wanna know. So put in the comments. Plenty more videos, plenty more content here all the time. But until the next one, thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. Peace and love.